Hello, fellow YouTubers. I want to talk about my experience with spiritual warfare. Now, I'm not talking about God fighting your battles. I'm not talking about guardian angels fighting your battles. I'm not talking about ancestors fighting your battles. I want to talk about this substance called ether, life force energy, mojo, what the French call a certain I don't know what, H- ions or just ions. The same substance that powers up batteries, powers up electronic devices, and plants and animals and humans. They call it ether on Final Fantasy 12 for PlayStation 2, or probably any of those Final Fantasy video games. There's a book that talks about it. It's called something along the lines of The Wiccan Bible, A Solitary Witch. The book called How to See and Read the Aura talks about it. Drugs and alcohol can deplete your ether, your spiritual energy. And there's a book called Spirits of the Earth, which mentioned that as well. There's a lady named Betty Jean Eady who had a near-death experience. She wrote one of the longest running #1 New York Times best-selling books of all time, called Embraced by the Light. It was the most comprehensive near-death experience ever written in a book at the time. She will tell you, I believe it's in her YouTube video called Our World in Agony. Look up Betty Eady, Our World in Agony. She will tell you that we affect the plants, animals, earth, and water. If I remember that right, I know it's at least some of those, possibly all of those. Negativity causes changes in the weather, and it causes earthquakes. Now, I accidentally discovered what I was capable of doing to defend myself with spiritual forces. I accidentally discovered this stuff, just like Spider-Man accidentally discovers his superpowers. And so, anyways, I believe I've caused the worst flood to hit Europe, starting at ever since it was like the worst flood that's ever hit Europe since 200 or like 250 years ago. Then it kept on raining, and then it caused the worst flood it's ever seen since 500 years. And that was back in 2013, and I believe I also caused the biggest flood to hit Colorado in its entire history. I believe that I caused the biggest hurricane to hit Mexico in its entire history. It was about 2-3 years ago, roughly. I was locked up in Southern California, and I said some of the harshest stuff that I could possibly concoct out of my mouth to these people that thought it was fun to test me. And I heard around that time the second biggest hurricane hit New Orleans since Hurricane Katrina. It was called Hurricane Ida, and then there was like 3 or 4 other hurricanes that hit that area too, or like 3 or 4 more hurricanes that hit other places too. I believe I caused the worst hurricane to hit Southern California that it's seen in since 84 years prior to that time. And around that time, there was a 4.5 magnitude earthquake. I've used both dark and negative spiritual forces. You know that saying, you cannot change the weather? Well, you can change the weather for good if you make everything in harmony with God. As the book called Do Less, Achieve More talks about, you can change the weather for bad if you use dark antimatter forces. Just say some of the most dark antimatter negativity out of your mouth and check the weather, and sure enough, most definitely there will be bad weather that hits somewhere around the world. And if you're a 40-year-old virgin like me, I just turned 40 November 1st. So plus I took the fountain of youth, the literal fountain of youth. So I am packed with all kinds of ions, like an alkaline lithium-ion battery. Anyway, so I've caused other bad weather, and because when Southern California got hit with the biggest hurricane it's ever seen, or like biggest flooding it's ever seen since 84 years prior to that time, and a 4.5 magnitude earthquake, the spiritual fight spilled over into neighboring regions. Phoenix got hit with the biggest flood it's ever seen in years. Same with Las Vegas. And I heard that there was like, 2, 3, 4 different hurricanes brewing off the Atlantic coast. And plus there was one that swept up the East Coast. It hit somewhere in the middle of the East Coast, and it went as far north as Maine, and even further north than Maine, all the way to Canada. And around that time, also before or after that time, it was like in the Mediterranean Sea, it had a hurricane that hit it. And there was, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Okay, so, and I also used positivity to make it rain, I believe, in Death Valley, because around that time, LA got hit with the worst flood it's ever hit it since 84 years prior to that time. It was in Death Valley. It got the worst rainstorm, or maybe not necessarily the worst, but it got the most amount of rain it's ever seen in its entire recorded history. So, and when I was in Lexington, Kentucky, and these stalkers were stalking me, I start yelling back at these stalkers, because this incident happened at the library, where, I mean, the stalkers have been stalking me for years now, but this one incident happened where I started yelling back at these stalkers at the top of my lungs, the harshest stuff to them, and the cops get called, and they're saying that I'm just, they got a call saying I'm disturbing the peace, and I told them, well, what are you gonna do about them, okay? Because you don't think for 1 second that I could do anything about them stalking me, okay? There's a scripture somewhere in the Bible that says, it talks about crying out to God day and night to get justice on those that persecute his chosen ones. That's me right here. So I told him that scripture, and then it was a few days or a few weeks later, I'm at the homeless shelter called the Hope Center in Lexington, Kentucky. I'm by the picnic tables, and that's also known as the smoking area. And all of a sudden, I hear these screeching tires, and then I hear a crash. And I look over to where the sound came from, and I noticed this light pole is falling over. It's falling down like one of the World Trade Center towers did. And there's all debris falling off the top of it, where the light bulb goes into place. And I couldn't see what happened at first because there was bushes blocking the view. And I most definitely knew what happened. And I went up to that spot beyond the bushes, and I looked into the street, and some dude T-boned this lady's vehicle. And now prior to that time, I was watching a movie, and this song came on the movie, and it goes, he effed them up, he really effed them up. Talking about the word F-U-C-K. He effed them up, yes, he really effed them up. Or he'll F you up, yes, God will F you up. When the hand of the Almighty falls on you. That's what the song is called, the hand of the Almighty. Before that accident happened, I heard that song in the movie. And then when the accident happened, I sung that song to mock, because by this time, the police show up, the ambulance people show up, the fire truck people show up, according to my memory. And then I start singing that song, and so anyways, ain't nothing wrong with being a virgin. If you're a virgin, you got superpowers that you don't even know about until now. Till next time, y'all, bye for now.